Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe podcast. I am your host, Joe, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Joe.
Oh, Joe, how did that sound? Because from my end, that sounded kind of nice.
That was like ASMR quality wine glugging. My God.
We have tonight. I think, Joe, this is going to be a weekly thing. Okay, everybody, we do not have a white wine tonight. We had the New Zealand last week. This week, we have actually a wine from Kirkland. Yes, the company Kirkland. It is a Malbec from Argentina. So this is a very purpley red wine. A little fruity, but also a little dry. So if I get if I'm a little more loosey-goosey tonight, don't question it.
I love how you describe that like you're one of the top wine connoisseurs straight out of France. It's a purpley red wine.
In reality, I was just reading the back of the bottle.
Does it call itself a purpley red wine?
Let me see what it says. Let me bring it up. This deep.
We'll get to comics in a second.
This deep purple Malbec has intense fruit notes of plum and cherries, and a long, rounded finish. It displays a perfect balance of ripe fruit coupled with oak spice from 12 months of careful aging in French oak barrels.
The emphasis you put on those words was quite dramatic.
Much like the books we're going to be talking about today.
Yes. Yeah. I'll
yes,
drink
Joe,
that.
I can do transitions as well. Don't act so surprised. I have a plan.
Okay. Is it...
It ended there.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Then we can continue on. So yes, hello everyone. Welcome back. Week 27, episode 27.2, Comics Edition. We have two that we're going to be talking about today. A shorter one, sort of a thing, a little bit like, he's a ha! I did some karate moves over there, but you probably couldn't see it. So we're going to start things off with a book that only I read. Joe was also going to have a solo book, but his comic shop did not stock up properly.
No,
it
wasn't that. It wasn't that. Guys, it's all my fault. I'm just slow. I should have went on Wednesday. I went on Thursday. Comics released on Wednesday. First comes, first serve. But no, Joe's got to do schoolwork. School comes first before podcast. Me.
That is the dichotomy of being both a student and a podcaster, isn't it? But I'm just going to briefly go through the Nightwing book that I read, and then the two of us are going to be talking about Radiant Black Numero Trace, so stick around for that. So, Joe, if you remember from the last time I talked about Nightwing, Dick Grayson, it's a new jumping on point. Dick Grayson had lost his memory. He had regained it. The Joker War happened, so a bunch of stuff happened, and now we're back to, like, if you want to get into Nightwing, jump in at issue 78. It's a nice, clean jumping on point for you to hop onto. And Barbara showed up with him, and he had rescued a dog, and blah, 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 blah. So this issue picks up with Dick and Barbara sitting around with the dog, and they had just fed it. And Nightwing remarks, he's just sort of like, oh man, I wonder how that food tastes. And Barbara looks over at him, she's like, you hungry? And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty hungry. She's like, all right, let's go get some food. And so they go to like an order out pizza place where like they're standing outside and they're just ordering. And Dick Grayson is just like, 2 slices of pizza, please. And Barbara, I love this moment because Barbara just looks at him and she's like, Dick, you're a billionaire now. And he's like, oh, right. 4 slices, please.
That's actually really good. That's great.
It's very good. I love it so much. And so like they're eating their pizza like out in a park somewhere in Bloodhaven, and Dick is just trying to figure out, he's like talking with Barbara, just trying to think, he's like, what am I gonna do with like all like these riches that I have now and like all the training that I've got? It's like, I want to be a force for good, but I don't know exactly how I should go about being that, because of all the crap that's happened where he lost his memory in the Joker, blah 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 blah. And as they're eating their pizza, a homeless man and his, or I don't know if it's homeless, he might just be poor, I'm not sure, but a not well-off man and his son walk up and they're just like, hey, would you guys happen to have any change to spare for the two of us? And both of them, like, Barbara's just like, oh no, I don't carry change anymore. And he's like, yeah, no one ever really does. Thank you anyway. And as they're turning around, Dick Grayson, literally, like, there are two little insert panels of him just, like, sitting there with, like, a weird look on his face. And the next one, it's, like, a little, like, literally a light bulb drawn above his head going off. And I'm like, oh, and he's like, wait a minute. You guys, do you like pizza? And they're just like, yeah. He's like, okay, go to the pizza place around the block. Get as many of your friends as you want. Don't hold back. And the guys are just like, okay. And the next scene, it's Dick buying loads of pizzas from this place, the pizza place that they were just at, which has a sign on it that says going out of business, I guess because business wasn't good. So now he's giving them loads of money so he can make all these pizzas for all these homeless people, which was really cool. It's like, Dick Grayson is just a better Batman because he's more human than Batman is. And like, this book is really good at showing that kind of stuff. And so as he's, giving all the pizzas or whatever, there are a couple of little kids that are just like, hey, can we take these to go, like, back to our place? And he's like, absolutely, do whatever you guys want. I'm just here to, give you guys the pizzas. And like, cool. And so they leave. And then he turns around to Barbara and then he realizes, he's like, wait a minute, where's my wallet? And then he's like, oh my God, do not tell anyone in the family this. And Barbara's like, too late, already sent it in the group chat. And so he's like, God, and there's just a bunch of messages from like all the members of the Bat family being like, holy shit, you just got pickpocketed, you idiot. And he's like, no, I can't believe it. And she's just like, yeah, watch out for Cass, she's going real hard with the emojis. And I'm like, that's going to date the book, but whatever. He suits up as Nightwing, and he goes off to try and find where those kids are at. And he finds them, and they're walking right past Maroni, who's meeting up with Zuko, the daughter of the guy who murdered his parents. And he sees them. He's like, oh, kids, don't you even think about it, because they're like walking past the table, and his wallet's on the table. He's like, do not steal from Maroni. He's the mob. He will kill you all. And so, of course, there's a little sequence where it's like them walking across, and like you see the wallet there, them in front of the wallet, and then them past the table, and the wallet's gone. And Maroni's like, hey, and like all the goons pull out their guns and start shooting at them. And so Nightwing hops down and takes out all the goons, and he's just like, lets the kids get away so he can, deal with all that crap. But then he follows the kids back to their encampment, which is, it's like a little tent neighborhood, because it's like where all the homeless live. And when he gets there, they're like, don't steal our hearts. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? They're like, you're the one stealing hearts, right? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he kind of looks around, and they're all looking at him in fear, and he's just like, actually, you guys can keep the wallet, you guys need it more than me. And he leaves, and Barbara's like, what the hell was that all about? And he's like, I have no idea, but I'm gonna do my best to try and find out what's going on in this city. And so that's when we cut to the father and son that like kicked off all of this stuff, are walking down an alleyway, presumably to get back to wherever they live, and you hear a voice come out of an alley, and it's just like, I don't remember what it says, but it's real creepy and ominous. And the father's just like, hey son, why don't you run away that way? And he just like sends his son off down the alleyway, and the guy's just like, you have what I want. And the father's like, I literally have nothing. And then out of the darkness, this weird gun appears, and then a claw shoots out of it, bores a hole through the guy's chest, rips out his heart, and it goes into the gun, and the father falls dead in the alley. And he's like, you had a heart. And like, that's like the end of it. And so you have like this new character who's like stealing hearts and stuff, and I'm just like, what? But that's Nightwing number 79. Great art, intriguing story, great characterization for both Dick and Barbara, and I'm just like, I am here for this book.
It sounds fantastic. Like, starting it off with that pizza joke is fucking hilarious. That is
It is
A+ humor. I love it. It's really wholesome having Dick pay for all the pizza and having the actual light bulb go over his head, like, oh shit, I can help you in some way. The pickpocket thing is hilarious, and I like the connection of, okay, this is how we're going to bring the quote-unquote villain is, because you get Zuko in there and Maroni, and you're like, okay, these characters are still in the world, and they're going to be, even though they're maybe not the main quote-unquote characters of the story, actually, like, they're still going to have a presence within this run. And I like the introduction of, like, oh, you're stealing our hearts? Because that just sounds weird. It's like, is that a metaphor? Is that literal? Like, what the fuck?
I mean, in the book, it's quite literal, but
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
if
no,
it's
no, no,
for
no,
other
no.
metaphorical purposes.
Yeah, yeah. When you first said it, I'm like, okay, is that a metaphor? Is it literal? And then when you explain what actually happened, I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, it's literal. And I gotta say,
He fucking Kali Maj that man in the alleyway.
yeah, I like it. I think that's really unique. I'm like, a freaking gun where it's like, did it look like one of like the toy claws that you do at like an arcade to win like a toy?
You know, it kind of did. It was like recessed into the gun, so like you couldn't really see the claw. Like you could tell that there were like 3 points around like the barrel of it that you could tell might have been something. But it almost looks like if you compacted a Doc Ock arm into like an oversized pistol. So like it would shoot out into the guy's chest, and it was like a metal tube that was like segmented and then just retract. I don't think you see the heart in the claw. Like you just see it shoot into his body, and then when it retracts, there's a massive gaping hole in his chest, kind of like Ichigo after his Ulquiorra fight. But yeah,
Great tie-in.
thank you.
Do you see the villain at all?
No, completely encompassed in shadow, so you don't know who they look like yet.
So I'm assuming this is going to be some form. This is going to be a new villain, most likely. If you think.
Probably, yeah. Either like a new character for this new villain, or a old character that's being revamped as this thing. I don't know, but I'm here for it.
Sounds very cool.
Yeah. All right, so you ready for Radiant Black numero tres?
Yes, and I will give a disclaimer that the book I was supposed to have with me was Blade Runner Origins #3. So this would have been like, I don't even know, like literally the 4th week in a row that I talked about Blade Runner. I feel like Blade Runner comes out every freaking week, but I missed it. So I might have it this coming week, like the actual time of this week, or 4 to 6 weeks, because who knows, right? Great. So let's talk about some Radiant Funk and Black. Let's go, baby.
Yee. You take point on this one since I talked so much about Nightwing.
What the hell was the?
That was a glitch in the Matrix. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, whew, thanks. I just wanted to double check. Okay, so we're at Radiant Black #3, and this one's titled, I believe, Writing Day. Yes, it's titled Writing Day. And our boy here is up nice and early. He's like, yeah, and Dad's like, wow, you beat me up in the morning. That's kind of impressive. And he's like, yeah, you know, it's a writing day. I like to get a head start. I'm like, okay, I get that. It makes sense. And we turn the page, and it's just this page of full text, like from a Word document. And it's a short story. And it's called Big Time by Nathan Burnett. And it's about bank robbers and their lovers. I won't go into full detail about it. But, Joe, I got to say, and I actually want to talk. No, I'll go through the story first, and then we'll get back to this. But this is the first point I want to bring up. The actual story that is in this, the story that Nate wrote, I love it. I'm like, wow. I'm like, I would pay money to hear more about this story. It sounds pretty fucking cool. And so we then kind of bring it back to normal comic style, and you realize he's sitting at his laptop, staring at the screen, having writer's block. The same
Doing
thing.
what every writer / artist / whatever else does. So I'm going to be productive today, and then the hours pass.
And he's like, all right. Like, he's thinking the right things. He's like, okay, what way do I go down? Do I go down what she's trying to do with her life, what she did beforehand? Do I just jump ahead and what went wrong? And, like, all those are good thoughts, but it's like he can't decide it's almost like he's waiting for the quote-unquote right thing to do instead of just picking something and going with it, because there is no right thing. And it shows him procrastinating. He's watching funny cat videos. He's setting a timer. And it's just not working. And he starts to write a bit. He's like, you know what? Let me just do it. I'm going to go down. And we get these alternating views of him typing, the actual page he's typing on, and I guess the Radiant, the quote unquote Radiant figure, with this weird calligraphy, and it's going back and forth between the two, and it's very strange. And I don't know. One of the text bubbles, I guess, is supposed to be the radiant entity, I guess, inside of him talking out, and it's telling him, throw it out, shred it, burn it all. This is the opposite of radiant. And then it cuts, and he's like, what the fuck was that? And then we cut to Marshall working at the movie store, and he's being an asshole, not helping somebody. Yeah, fuck Marshall. This dude's an ass.
Yeah, it's kind of a dick.
And he's like, yeah, I'm coming up with an idea of, like, your superhero. And I like how he has written down here, Mighty Morphin, and he crosses it out, and it says lawsuit underneath.
Yeah, it's just lawsuit. It's like, yeah, I probably can't go with that one.
I'm like, I like it, Higgins. I like it. I like the reference.
Well, because I'm pretty sure Higgins was the
Mm-hmm.
main writer on Power Rangers for, like, the last couple of years, so...
Yep.
That's still a thing.
Yeah, that's why I found it so funny. So they end up deciding on the name Radiant Black, and Marshall's like, oh, I made you a Twitter account. And Nate's like, what the fuck is wrong with you, actually? Like, dude, like, what the hell? And throughout this, Nate's just trying to jump from, like, place to place. He's like, okay, I can't write at home. Let me go to visit Marshall and try and write. Oh, he's being an asshole. Let me jump to a bar and try and write. And while he's on his way to the bar, there's these other text bubbles that almost have electricity around them, and I believe that's the radiant entity inside his head talking to him. And we get an inside view of what's happening, and Nate's drinking some beers and trying to work on this, and eventually he makes his way back home, and we see that he's working on his story, and out of nowhere, Radiant Black, the character that he is, blasts through his roof, comes in, grabs him, and this Radiant Black has a cape on, which I gotta say, looks pretty cool. And he, like, drags him up into the sky, and he's trying to talk to Nate, and Nate's like, I have no clue what you're saying. And his mask comes down, and he says, I'm what you will never be, Nathan, worth breathing. Oops, and drops him from space, and then Nate wakes up and it was a dream. And I don't know who this character is. That's the Radiant Black. I have a couple ideas that I'm going to talk about with you, but it's a little weird. I don't know what's going on. And he wakes up and he's like, oh shit, I still haven't written anything. He's like, let me, and he gets a notification from his Twitter account that Marshall made that, like, some people need some help to their way to the Bulls game. So he goes and he helps them, and we get a cute little scene of him carrying their car to the game because he doesn't know how to fix a fucking flat tire. And then he passes out asleep, and he's like, all right, next time I'll actually do work. But he ends up getting motivated in the middle of the night, and he just starts writing the whole night. And his dad wakes him up, and he's like, oh, wow, have you been writing? He's like, yeah, I'm just, I've been feeling it. And he's like, all right, this time I'm going to get it right. Like, I'm actually making progress. And the story ends, or the issue ends there, and the next one's going to be called Everything Changes for Real. And at the back of the book, we have we get our second issue of Blackmail, talking about some of the mail that the editors received. And we also get a short story by one of the fans. A lot of stuff going on here, Joe.
Yeah. I was quite intrigued by a lot of this because just of how relatable, like, it continues to be just a very relatable story for people who are writers or artists, or just, I guess, anyone can feel these or go through these kinds of motions where it's like, I feel like college students especially, like if you're a college student and you wake up and you're like, okay, today is going to be my productive day. And then you're sitting there and you're like, maybe you write out like a paragraph or something when you have like a 10-page paper, and then you're like, okay, I'll take a break to watch this YouTube video, and then after this, I swear I'll get back to it. Like, he has the timer on his phone that goes off. It's like, okay, I have to stop looking at memes. I have to get back to writing. I'm like, this is such, like, you can tell the person writing this is, like, writing from life experience, and I love that because then at the end, after he does, like, the rescuing of, the family that with their car and all that sort of stuff. And he comes back, and then it's like that is his spark of inspiration to then be like, oh, I think this would work. And then he starts writing, and it's like, you know, the
2
stuff
a.m.
from
and
his
stuff.
yeah. He's writing at 2 a.m., but it's like he's writing from his own experiences, and so it's just like all like the correct stuff that you're like seeing going through this, and it's cool because it's not your standard superhero origin story sort of a thing. It's really taking its time and spending way more time in like the actual life of Nathan, as opposed to something like, you know, Spider-Man or Invincible, or like anything else where it's very much like, okay, the first story arc, it's got to be real action oriented, real origin stuff, got to give you a whole bunch of crap. And then this one, it's very much decompressed in the sense of like, yeah, there's some superhero stuff, but he's a writer. We're gonna explore that a lot. And I'm like,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So I was gonna say that I definitely know that experience of being like, oh, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna get work done, and then specifically a Filipino man comes in and says, hey, you want to play Melee? And then everything just goes to shit and you get no work done. So Joe, I know what you're talking about. And yeah, like this story with its very easy, it's easy to relate to, and it's easy to relate to because the writer has done a really good job of making it relatable and making it realistic. But it kind of does remind me of Spider-Man in the sense of like you're creating a younger character who has these personal problems, these actual struggles. They're not perfect Superman. And so that's what kind of reminds me. That's how I make the connection to Spider-Man, at least in my head. But I know what you're trying to say as well. And I want to get your opinion first, Joe, on this short story that he wrote that we get at the beginning. What do you think of it?
Yeah, so as far as the actual like story that Nathan's writing in the thing, it's about it's like a Bonnie and Clyde-esque sort of a thing. Or even like I almost got like Joker and Harley vibes. Even I guess Joker and Harley are technically a Bonnie and Clyde.
I was
type of
getting
duo.
Baby Driver vibes.
Yes, very much so as well. Again, all like different coats of paint on the same core idea where it's a couple and they're into crime. They love doing a crime and probably doing a sex afterwards, you know? But this story picks up with that he's writing. The couple has just done the crime. They've robbed a bank, presumably about to drive off and go do the sex on all the monies, all the crime monies, that is, Joe. And instead, the guy gets shot and killed, and she drives away because she has to. She's like, I've got to get out of here. And so she's like, the story is like, there's just open road ahead of her, and she's got hundreds of thousands of dollars in this car with her. She can do anything she wants. And it's like that infinite possibility stuff. I'm just sort of like, yeah, this is pretty cool. It's very baby. Like I can picture the scene when Baby and Deborah, that's her name. I can remember her name in that movie because
That was impressive. I'm
lot.
shocked.
Thank you. Because there's that point in the diner where he's like Deborah, and then he rhymes with the zebra, and I'm like, that's weird, but whatever. So Baby Driver and Deborah are like driving onto that like strip of land bridge in like that lake, and then the cops encircle them, and he gets out of the car, and like his hands are up, and he throws the keys away, and he just lets himself get taken in, and so like Deborah's left alone in the car, and I was just like thinking to myself, like the people I was picturing in this short story were those two, so I completely understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, okay, good. Cause yeah, I was thinking of it the whole time. And that reminds me, maybe we should do Baby Driver for one of our movie episodes. That'd be a pretty cool one to rewatch. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I just need to make a note real quickly. Give me 30 seconds.
Let me write this down real
Baby
quick.
Driver. Okay, adding that to the list. So, Joe, who is this other Radiant?
I was under the impression that it was just like a future version of Nate that he had dreamt up, and I'm not entirely sure if it is just like a weird dream version of Nate because he's like, I'm worthless, because that's what every writer or artist thinks, like when they can't get through and actually make work, like, oh my god, I'm worthless, everything I make is crap, nothing is correct, I'm a failure, blah 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 blah. So it's either that, or because he's now imbued with the power of space with this black hole thing inside of him being radiant, it might also be something connected to that is now appearing in his mind, connecting him. Because when you're talking about the like the thought bubbles in his head and how they have like the weird like electricity or energy surrounding them, or whatever the design is that surrounds those thought bubbles, it's either, it could be that it's Radiant speaking inside of his head, but also I feel like it might also just be the design for his thought bubble. They might just like do something so it's not just a standard like white oval. They add a little bit more design elements just to make it look cooler. But it could also be that the two entities are combining inside of him. So it's like it's both Radiant and Nathan. I don't know. I find that's something that'll come up maybe more so like later on.
Yeah. So when we get the one look of what the face looks like of this Radiant from his dream, it definitely looks like him with a beard, and it's just older. But
Yeah.
I'm still not fully convinced. I'm still not sure, and I would like to find out more. We don't find anything out about the Red Radiant, or Radiant Red in this.
Yeah, he's nowhere to be seen.
But I will say, did you read like the blackmail section?
I did not know. I flipped through it and I was like, oh, this is neat. And then I put it down because I have a thesis to do, Joe, and I really need to finish my thesis.
Not important. Basically, what they said in this is that next issue, it's even called Everything Changes, but they even the editor says in this like, no, like it's a big issue, like things really do go down.
Okay. That makes sense after an issue like this that was way slower, and like the only Radiant Black stuff you get is him just saving the family, which I did like. I was like, this is very Spider-Man-esque. He's just a little guy.
Yes.
He doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just like, okay, I'll do this, and he helps out. And then he comes back and he wants to sleep because he's tired. But then he's like, nah, I gotta write because now I know what to do. And so it's like the ending of this, really most of this, it's very Spider-Man-esque, and I love that core element of this.
Yeah. I enjoyed this thing. Radiant Black still never ceases to disappoint, and I am excited. I hope it. I want this thing to continue for a while, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, same here. All right, so as far as stuff for next week,
I have my
bit of a
list.
busy week. As do I.
Yeah.
I believe I have 4 books that I know that I'm picking up. I'm picking up next issue of Spider-Man Miles Morales. I believe this is the beginning of his Clone Saga, which was seeded like way earlier in the series. So we'll see how this goes.
Was that?
Clone
Wait a
Sagas
minute.
are-
Wasn't that
what?
like back in the fall of last year that we found out about that? Okay, I'm trying to remember. I feel like you talked to me on the phone or something, because this is back fall of last year, and we found out that, or at least you found out that like this character, this villain that was in the story, there was like a big reveal that he was Miles Morales.
That was Ultimatum. That was something different. But I do remember
Damn it!
talking to you about that. Yeah, no, this is something different. But it was from a villain from even before the Ultimatum stuff was going on. There was another villain that like abducted Miles and like was experimenting on him, and he didn't know why, and eventually he got out, but there were implications that like we got what we needed from him. So this is the culmination of that. But so aside from that, Once in Future, it's like whatchamacallit, like Arthurian legend in real life. It's great. Dan Moore art, top notch. Teen Titans Academy #2, and then Batman Black and White #5, which I feel like it's been a year since #4 came out, but I guess, I don't know, the last stuff's just been happening in between.
Yeah. I was really surprised. I saw that as well. I'm like, Batman Black and White #5. I'm like, wow, haven't read that in a while. So
Yeah.
I'm also doing Batman Black and White #5, Teen Titans Academy #2, and hopefully my Blade Runner Origins #3. But who knows? That could be 6 weeks before I even get that.
Yee. Alrighty. Anything else to add to this?
No.
Alrighty. Then with that being said, everyone, read more comics. Read lots of comics. Also, leave a like and a comment. Really, either of those things, or do both of them. ¿Por qué no los dos? As the tiny Hispanic child would say in the taco commercials. Also, subscribe, do all that wonderful, beautiful stuff. Yeah, and so with that, I shall say to all of you, goodbye.